We're going to make a journey down 2 Chinese scrolls and a Western painting with this roll of film. Each of them has a different attitude toward time and space, and therefore narrative. And they seem to add up to even another journey that I think we're still making, and we don't know where it will end. And that may be the real subject of this film. You're looking, in a way, at 3 pictures, 2 pictures within a picture. There's this very picture you're looking at of me on the screen, talking. Behind me on the wall is a picture by Canal, and on the table here is a scroll, a Chinese scroll. I just first wanted to demonstrate that the scroll is a different kind of picture. You see it in a different way. It's really a picture without edges in a normal sense. The canaletto is clearly seen as a kind of window. There it is on the wall, and it's an appropriate place to put it. The scroll isn't a window. It's not that way of seeing. If I can move the edges, both edges, then they can go where I want. I can go backwards and forwards. The top represents the sky, maybe the bottom represents me. And it means you control the edges. And this makes it quite a different picture from that one or this one right here. These are the first figures in the scroll, and the first one seems to be a man even carrying his bed. Perhaps he's slept in it, waiting for the emperor. And the scroll tells the story of a journey taken by the Emperor of China in 1689 along the Grand Canal from Wuxi to Suzhou. You're looking at the entire scroll here, from top to bottom. It's a distance of 27 inches, and it's 72 feet long. As we move along it, you're going to see where the emperors visited and life in the cities and so on. There's the little island right at the beginning of the scroll. The emperor spent the night here. Notice the subtleties of the drawing, even backs of people. The man here with the pole. I think probably that figure there is about 1 inch high, and I should think he is about the tallest figure in the scroll. Now you can see how small that little baby is. And here's somebody having an argument here. The jackasses and the asses jumping about. The beginning of a little town here, the first stop on the emperor's journey, with all the life you see. Two old men philosophizing here, ignoring the rumpus going on ashore. As you can see with this method of depicting space, the eye is wandering around already, and you have to decide, in a sense, where to look. we can move down this street at this angle and see what's going on. You might want to notice the colors. There are not very many. The blues and reds are prominent, and they're mineral and watercolors painted on silk. The artist's name is Wang Wei, and he worked with a group of assistants, possibly about 7. Here's a man keeping a lookout for the emperor who's going to pass by on the canal. People have cleaned up, put out bunting, and have even put out the best peacock feathers, as people would if the Emperor of China was coming to pass by. This way we get a very intimate view of life in the city, even life in the little back streets. This idea of making the edges disappear, I mean, the point is I'm well aware, even now, where the frames of this picture you're looking at. See, if I make the scroll, turn it and go up here, it's already gone off the edge of a frame, but not for me. So in a way, it's nice to remember when we're looking at even details of this scroll, where even on the screen they've got an edge around them. In reality, the way you're meant to view it, this is not the case. The camera itself moving through the scroll, of course, means somebody else is selecting where the eye is going to move, because the camera's got edges. If it didn't, we'd be better off, but nobody's yet devised a camera like that. It's also a rather more private way of looking at a picture than the Western way. In the rail scroll, perhaps only 2 or 3 people at a time could see this. It would never be displayed in its 70-foot length, but you'd just examine 3 or 4 feet at a time, unrolling it in a sense as we do now. Here's a fish merchant. In fact, I think there are 2 fish merchants next to one another. In London, this would be called Herring Lane. You can see, even in the portrayal of the fish on the slab, there seems to be 3 or 4 tones used to describe them, which is rare on something so small. Again, we're seeing the entire scroll, and you can see the little fish shops in the bottom right-hand corner. And then we move along to a very interesting corner here. Now, what we have at this corner is something very fascinating, and we'll show you how subtle the perspectives are. As you see, you can come down this street and you're seeing the shops from this side. And here are the roofs coming down, and this roof is parallel to that, bringing you to this corner. If you move over here now, you suddenly see this is the only roof where the lines aren't parallel. It shifts to make it possible to see this side now. But also at this corner, as you can see, you're seeing this side of this house, but this side of this house, and this side of the bridge, which means when you're looking at the bridge, you're way over there, but on top of the bridge, you're then seeing this house. That's why you see that side. So it's a marvelous, complex example of shifting viewpoints that still seem to make perfectly ordered sense to me, and in fact make it far more spatial than our old friend Canal. Here we are in one position. Perhaps we can turn our head left to right, but we cannot go over this wall. We cannot look down the arches at the side there. It's a much more restricted space than the scroll, and in a sense we're outside of this space. We're not in it. These two pictures could be said to relate in some way to this camera that's making this image now, in the sense that a lens is seeing it in a similar way to a lens that saw Venice for Canaletto, but the camera also contains something that rolls, like a scroll of film, that turns all one way, it's true, endlessly going forward, even if it pretends to go back. But so they both have a link with the depiction that is being used to make this very picture now. As we move on from this marvelous corner, we'll follow a line of people going along the bank of the canal, and it will eventually lead us to the top of the scroll. And when we arrive there, we can contrast this with not only the Canaletto, but a second scroll painted 75 years after this one, after Western missionaries had visited China and brought with them examples of Western ways of seeing. You're looking now at the second scroll. It was painted around 1770, and it also records a journey by the emperor. But this artist's depiction of space is quite different. As you can see, everything is beginning to recede. Even the landscape is receding and is now painting the boat, as it were, going into the space, not along it. There's even a hint of it, the lines beginning to be not parallel, coming at an angle very, very similar to the Canaletto. We're trying to go into the picture, not look upon it. Returning now to the first scroll, you can see here that this line of figures that moves all up to the top of the scroll, the figures at the top of the scroll are about the same size as the figures at the bottom. They don't recede with the distance as they would in a painting influenced by Western perspective. I think you can see the scale of the figures is certainly above half the scale of the figure right here. Now here we have a new town being built, tiling roofs and building it. Our wandering eye now can go down little tributaries of the canal. We can bob along with the ducks in the water and look at the reeds and so on. Here's the edge of our tributary. Look at cattle, they've even got expressions on the face. Delightfully, I think. We're at the back of buildings now, and we're going to look through a kind of vegetable garden with a lady looking after it rather gracefully with a basket. Naturally, she's got some helpers, a little old man and a kind of little hunchbacked man who are probably doing the weeding. Well, we're back along the main canal now in another town. Here's a hat merchant selling those rather nice red hats that we see, especially more as we approach the Emperor. And even though we're halfway through this scroll, we've already seen a lot of life in the cities, how people live, even how they eat. We're approaching a little dumpling shop, and a little boy has been sent to pick up the dumplings. It's a takeaway, and it even seems to be a kind of mom and pop business. And so I'd like to point out as well, this is a kind of state document. It was commissioned by the Emperor to describe this journey, and a modern equivalent, say, would be the commission to depict, say, the coronation of Queen Elizabeth in 1953, which is a 12-hour movie. That possibly does not tell us as much about life in London then as this does in back streets. We didn't go down back streets in the coronation. We seemed to concentrate on the main event. Now here we are back at the full view of the scroll, and as you can see, your eye can decide where to go. Shall we go on the bottom row, or shall we go on the top row, or what shall we do? Shall we go over that bridge before it's going to disappear off the picture? If we do, we can go over the bridge, go along up the top there, and there'll be another bridge later we can come down and see. Now we've come along the top, we've gone over that bridge, come down over this bridge to see a very busy area with a beggar woman in the middle, even with a baby clutched to her breast and a dog with an eye. Other people having a rest, gentlemen here having a rest and so on. So it's covering all aspects of the society, even things they might want to hide. And now we're going to go, you suddenly notice the camera is moving from left to right. This is the first time we've done this, but that's because we went up one street and came over the bridge and want to go down the other. So we are moving, and there's a procession moving here from left to right, a procession of monks. As we look at these figures, the monks seem to be in a uniform, but it's still a wonderful observation of them. And I might point out here that most of the figures seem to be even portraits. This is the equivalent, of course, of looking at it with a magnifying glass. There's even a monk there looking like my old friend Henry Geltzoller, actually. But as you can see, the faces are different, the folds in the clothes are very expressive, and so on. And compared, say, to the scroll 70 years later, here these figures are drawn very differently, much more Western, much stiffer. They look posed, they lack individuality because they seem isolated in space. The others do not. They now seem to link. You're always linking. Even a watcher who's not in the procession, watching them as they go by. They even relate more to the trees and the stores. Here's a kind of paper merchant who doesn't seem to be giving him anything, even though one of the monks is holding out his begging bowl. They seem to be more successful at the rice merchant who's giving them food. But it does seem to me that the figures have an incredible shimmer of life, which is as though, in a way, he's got round a problem of something being static, even if it's stood still. He's, in a way, put more time there, so it isn't a rigid moment caught. It seems to be longer when some man is looking round somebody's shoulder, or the gestures of the sleeves. Of course, he's got a very good thing you can do with these sleeves. If you notice in some of them, is they sleeves go like this, so that rather expressive gestures can be made of that kind of thing happening. But I think every single one somehow has some wonderful quality about the living. Here's the second scroll. Well, the living seem a bit deader here. Unlike here, where the artist has found a way to animate his figures. It is a kind of formula, there's no doubt. He's found a kind of formula, just as Canaletto has, but somehow Canaletto's way seems to me less expressive about action. I think here you can see the fields behind this house, where the old man, a little old man, is walking up the hill. But if anything, the way they're drawn, you can see the lines are actually going out that way, not that way. And it creates the space behind it. It means you can be looking at it from over here, as I move along. We move along into what in this film world they'd call a bit of a fade out, so he can jump somewhere else, but the artists here planned for a detour. They provide a mist, a very beautiful and subtle mist that enables one to make a jump in the time. There's wonderful bits of landscape here that you just see through mist. And then as it comes down to the bottom of the scroll again, the mist disappears as it will up here now. So here we are at the theatricals. They're planning some little opera or something on a boat. And as we move along, we come to a flat bit, and we're going to go up a river up there. But just here are two boats that, if you look at and realize carefully, on this top boat you're looking at the side of it there, so it means you're over here looking at it. This boat underneath shifts positions in the sense that you're over here looking at it because you can see this side. So that in this one small area, we have a viewpoint from way over that side and way over this side. And they both make a V like this, which of course was also the canal going up there. And canal going up there. This device would not work in the Canaletto, but it will work here. Here are the only non-Chinese in the scroll. 3 merchants, probably from Central Asia, are attracting a lot of attention because, of course, they look different. And then we move to the house of a man who seems to have a kind of bonsai tree business, and again, because of this depiction, we can see quite a lot about it. We saw his house. Here is the back courtyard where they're growing them, and then you can, as it were, move down over this roof, and we can move into a kind of manager's office where they're probably preparing them or patting down the pots or something. And then you move yet again into the street area where there's the sales office where they can sell the bonsai trees. There's a little old man in brown there seriously thinking of buying one. Again, it's the depiction of space that enables us to do this. Now we're moving from the bottom of the scroll to the top, up a rather famous area, Tiger Hill, which the emperor would have seen. But here, the skillful use of putting the figures on that ground and how well they define the plane without chiaroscura, actually, without little shadows underneath. And now here you can see everything is moving down towards the bottom left-hand corner as the emperor is going to appear. And we start this longest tracking shot on the scroll. It's as though we're starting in the suburbs. This looks like Surbiton or West Covina, and we will end up actually seeing the emperor. And so you can understand how complicated the space is here and what we can do, looking over in the back street, seeing the people gossiping in their houses and so on. Again, jumping over walls, coming back to a little shop, into another street. Then over walls yet again, looking at the backs of the houses, and we come back to the banks of the canal. Here we see a lot of boats, an incredible mass of boats and a variety that's in them. And we move back into the canal itself, and we're going to see the emperor in his barge as we approach it. Well, here we are, and we see, in a sense, what a wonderful portrait it is, what a humane man he seems to be. Here you might notice that surrounding or waiting to greet the emperor, people seem to be older. The old men kneeling down. Here, the old man just leaning to look around the horse seems to me such a wonderfully human thing that he would be doing. The artist is showing that they're not totally rigid, even though the Emperor of China is about to arrive. Men running up there. He's coming, he's coming. See how human these portraits seem to be. And we can now move from the bottom of the scroll to the top, again seeing a different kind of space. We move up through the boats on the canal to another wonderfully vivid crowd gathered on a quayside, up the enormous wall, the walls of Suzhou, and over the top of the walls we can begin to see what's going on behind them, so on. Again, we couldn't do anything like this in the Canaletto or in the second scroll. Now here we're back to the whole scroll again, and this is like a great helicopter shot looking over the event. We can see where we have been The emperor's still visible in the boat. We have been down there with the camera looking over it, and we're moving over the walls into the city of Suzhou. The artist is using this mist device in much the same way as he did previously. It's to mask the detail and give you a jump in space to show you the great area of this city without actually describing every detail or even every suburb. As you can see, the horizon has again shifted from where it was just a moment ago when the emperor arrived, and the surface of the scroll now seems to encompass the whole vast expanse of the city. This is only possible in these techniques, this attitude to space. Because the moment we come to the other scroll, you can see very, very clearly the Western influence of making space, and paradoxically, by putting a larger space there, they've shown us less. They've shown us a smaller space. Here the emperor is the grandson of the previous emperor. The descriptions of people around him, as you can see, are quite different. Everybody's smaller than he is here. Again, they're more rigid. You cannot move about as you can here in the first scroll. It's less human as well, in the sense that you don't quite see these little people peering round as you do in this scroll. Here is a very, very Western way of depicting space. The lines seem to be converging. We're very, very close to this. By comparison here, the eye can move up to the right at an angle, then move up to the left at angles. We get angles crossing, not vertically and horizontally, but other ways. Here again in the second scroll, we can see as we move along the embankment that it's now become more like a panorama, seen from a fixed point. It's as though a camera is up on a hill pointing down and simply moving round. We are not entering different spaces and so on. The figures are all still facing the emperor back there. The crowd is a lot less animated, as you can see. I think they're not seen as individuals anymore relating to each other. A sadder picture to me of a crowd. It may not seem like it, but you've now seen most of the second scroll, far more than you have of the first. Well, I would like to now explain just about the perspectives used in the pictures, in a way we've seen, including this one. We'll notice that in the scroll, the first scroll, the lines are always parallel that way or that way, and they cross each other. The lines do not converge, and as they do in the Canaletto. The Canaletto, in a way, belongs to, it's a picture like this. If this is the frame and the edge, here's a horizon, here's a road. The observer, the viewer, is an immobile point outside the picture. Here, this is the viewer. That is a vanishing point, theoretically, at infinity. Now, if this moves, this moves. My conjecture was if the infinite is God, this and this will never connect. So they will never meet each other. Now, in reverse perspective, this happens. We now have, instead of that triangle, a triangle doing this. Here now is a point, and this is the spectator, who is not immobile because he can see both sides. He is in movement, like we think we're in movement, and infinity is now everywhere, including the viewer. God is everywhere, including within you. It seems to make more theological sense. Now, as you can see in the first scroll, I am suggesting that seemed to be a peak, as it were, of the Chinese attitude to time and space and how they depicted it. The second scroll seems to represent a decline because of ideas brought from the West. It also parallels, in a way, the decline of China itself. Now, why did it decline, one might ask? I asked. I was at one time given two replies. One was they'd lost their intellectual curiosity. The second one was that there was superior military technology elsewhere. Well, obviously they're both connected, but what's interesting is the connection between the invention of the vanishing point in 15th century Italy and military technology, in the sense that the moment this happened, cannons could be fired more accurately, triangulation was set up, and so on. So there's a very direct connection between this and military technology, and as there is not here. And I think there is possibly a great connection between the way we depict space and the way we behave in it. We're now approaching the end of the first scroll and of this film, and I think it should be clear to you by now just how different is this way of seeing and depicting space. We can choose where our eye will go. We can see into the corners and around the walls, always finding a variety of charming and well-observed detail. It's always an intimate view, and I think we must realize it is to do with how they are feeling and seeing space. We've now arrived at the last few feet of the scroll, and this is where the emperor is going to spend the night at the house of the Silk Commissioner, and you can see them preparing for his entrance in the courtyard, and the house has been decorated wonderfully with bunting.